Hello again. Right, now this is the second part of this short film showing you how to repair the motor and mechanism on the Grand Cherokee 2006 model wing mirror. So what I've done is I've got the wing mirror off, as you saw just in my previous movie, and the mirror itself, you've got to be very careful when you come to remove it. Obviously this is the second one we've had to replace because the first one shattered and we've had another one got shattered. So what you do is very careful, you get your fingers, you actually push the mirror itself to one side so you can get your fingers behind it. And once you've got your fingers behind you, very carefully bend it down and get your fingers delicately behind, and you keep on pulling very delicately until finally it comes away. You can see the clips on the back of the mirror itself, where they locate onto the actual back plate of the automatic adjustable mirror motor backing. So I'll put that one to one side. And I'm now looking to see how it is I can get inside the actual mechanism for working the motor inside here, because this is where it's all gone wrong inside here. So what I'm going to try and do is, you can see the spindle, this is all sort of floppy now, it's just not working properly. So somehow we've got to separate this front from the backing, and then hopefully when we do this inside we'll be able to get to the motor. So this is again something I've not done myself. I have noticed that there are little clips inside. I was looking for some screws first of all in here, just to be able to know how to separate the front from the back. And what I have noticed is if you bend this right open here, you can see that there are two tabs here, and when I find out how this comes apart here, these obviously two tabs you push down with a screwdriver and you actually pull this apart a little bit, so it's actually on its way, obviously moving apart now already, but I need to find out what holds it behind this other mechanism here, and I rather think that we've got some clips, I think, at the back here, which should help undo it, and I'll show you in a second. Okay, so looking at the inside of the actual mirror housing, you'll notice that just down here, behind the wiring loom, there is a Phillips screw, pardon me for a minute, and if I locate it on the end, if I undo that screw, this, I'm hopeful, the fact that it's going to bring away the actual body apart. There is a clip as well, I noticed, just above that. Once I've taken this screw out, you can see there's a tab clip here which I think holds the top end of the housing together. I'm not quite sure what there is around here until I actually see what happens when this screw comes out. So we'll make that out. Quite a long screw actually, quite surprising. It's longer than I thought. Right, okay, this is now coming out. Right, okay, it is quite a long screw. I think that would hold the Queen Mary in place, but anyway, there we go. So now that I've got that long screw out, looking at this again in a bit more detail, I've decided to take the wing mirror rotating motor out of place here, because I just want to be able to get into it a bit more with a bit more easy access. So what I've done is I've taken the there's three screws holding this actual swivel mechanism onto the back plate, and each one of those again, they're actually a form of torque screws, very tiny torque screws, but I actually managed to use a very minute little electric screwdriver end to get, if you haven't got any torque screw keys, but I do, but I thought I'd try this anyway, but it worked. So after taking those three screws out, you actually lift this motor out of the way. There is an attachment, there is a connection which is on the side of that again, and it's got a little tongue which you just push and you just pull it out, and that came out. So just remembering when that went in place, just so you can have a look at this mirror, the connection was sort of down at 45 degrees pointing towards the actual axle part of the mirror. So when that goes back in, remember that's the way it goes in, but that's one side. Okay, now this is the real difficult part now that I experienced. I had to scratch my head and figure out how I can separate the actual back part from the front. Did identify before that there was a clip inside, which was here, which was actually that little thin clip the holes, the back part on, but you can't fiddle around with that at this stage. You need to take the front part off first. So I discovered if you turn this over, you can see there is clips here. You just push with a screwdriver, 2 tabs, and then that comes apart, but you find it's still naturally tight until, this is the tricky bit, you've got to get a very narrow screwdriver, because there are 3 very tight clips here and here and in here. So what you have to do, you have to get your screwdriver in, you have to prise them open a bit and then lever at the same time. There's 3 of them, as I say, and you have to do the same. Get your screwdriver in, just bend it back as best you can, and then just prise it open. It took me a little bit of time to do it actually, but now I've actually done it, we got there now with it. So once you do that, you actually take this part, which is the front part. It comes in a number of sections, more sections than I actually thought, but that's one side. As you see now, here we have the part of the mirror itself. Unfortunately, I've actually managed to locate a screw which is down the side here. This was holding everything in place. You can see there's a little hole there, there's a little tiny screw right in there. That screw I managed to take out. It's only a small thing, tiny little, again, a Phillips head screw. What that does is now that just locked the actual mechanism in place to stop it from coming up and down. So once you remove that grub screw, the axle then will actually pull out of the actual body of the mirror. Unfortunately, the one thing that's stopping us now from putting it all the way through are the actual cables that were attaching to the little swivel motor and also to the external part of the mirror itself. But we've also got these cables here which just jog behind the actual 2 plastic parts, and this is going to be my next job, to find out how I can separate this. With a bit of leverage, that little tongue that I mentioned by the side here, when that was in place, I'll just show you very briefly. This wasn't easy either. This was quite a job. You've got to separate this plate from the very back of the mirror, and it was that tongue there that was holding this bit here in place. At the same time, you have these chocks which were sat in underneath here. So what you have to do, once you've undone this little lug on this point, you have to then venture with your fingers at this end, and you start to pull it apart steadily until finally everything does come away. So that's your back part of your mirror. A lot more parts to this than I ever thought, to be honest with you. So now I've done that, I've now got access to the cable which sits on the back here. So you'll have to just prise this open, or that's the clip just holding it in place. So I rather think that in order to pass this through, this cable has to be disconnected in order to, unless it might just pass through there tight enough, I just don't know. But we're now going to find out. As we slide this out, the whole motor comes out. This is going to be a job to perform to put it all back in again, I reckon. But anyway, we'll have a go. And you can see here now, this is the part we've got to get into and find out what it is that's gone wrong inside. As I can see, there's a clip on this end of the motor housing, and obviously, hopefully, when that comes unclipped, the whole thing will sort of open. Now, hoping then that these parts that I have are going to do the job.
It was a much harder job than I'd expected, but at least there was some satisfaction in being able to strip it right down to the spindle on the back of the mirror itself. There's a motor you can see inside, and some geared wheels which work the turning of the actual mirror on that plastic spindle. But once you get right down to the workings of it, you can actually slowly build it up. You can see exactly what was wrong and build it back up again. So I hope that this has solved the problem.
Okay, so it was quite a big job in the end. I've got it all together now, but I'm just going to explain to you a couple of things which I had to do. It was a reverse of taking all the bits and pieces, the frame and so on together, to put it all together again. But The main problem was inside the base of this anchor which goes onto the door, there is a fitment, a plastic fitment, and there's what looks like a pillar. It's made of plastic and it actually stands up inside. And it had actually come up, and it comes up quite too far. It was rattling around and this was just flopping around. And I discovered that realistically what should have happened inside where the mirror fits on top of it, there are little plastic grip spring collar, and I had to prise open the teeth on it. When I'd actually got everything off, I was able to see that that piece of plastic was swiveling. So as an improvised fix, what I did was I dropped a bit of super glue down on the pillar because it was spinning around endlessly. So I fixed it. And then I was able to just make sure that when you put it in, you just make sure you don't put it in right at the very bottom, but you leave it just a little bit, about 1/4 of an inch up. Reason being is when you put the mirror fitting back onto it again, and those clips fit back into the pillar, obviously if it's too low down it won't fit in. If it's just a fraction up, it clicks into place. And now what I've got is a wing mirror here now which doesn't flop around, and it's actually connected to the motor inside. So hopefully it does move a little bit, but that'll tighten up, I hope, when the motor starts to turn. So what I'm going to do is, before I put the glass back on again, because I don't want to shatter the glass trying to get the glass back off here, I'm going to put this on the car in my next clip and wire it up and fold it in and fold it out. Hopefully, fingers crossed, the thing's going to work. When I know that it does work by folding in and out, then I will put the mirror glass back on again, which you know, is quite easy just to clip on. It just clips on straight on there. When you do it, you put it back on here. You just make sure that you do firmly push around the centre of the mirror and not on the outsides of it. But I'm not going to put that on until I've actually tested the operation of this. A bit complicated, a bit long-winded, sorry for that, but I've learned quite a lot in doing this exercise, so I hope other people watching this, it might be useful. And good luck with your attempt at trying to do it. Thank you.